Why don't we go ahead and get started? Actually quite thin. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So I see Daft just joined. He's doing some housekeeping on Docker Hub. And I mean, we don't need to rehash too much ONF issues here, but just from an Aether ongoing perspective, Daft, could you fill everyone in on what the issue is? You're muted if you're, there you go. Can anyone hear him?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hello?
Is this question for me? I'm sorry, I've been stuck.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I wasn't sure if you were fully connected. I just wanted you to fill everyone in and hope. I see Andy. I'm not sure we have a lot of old timers here, but just from an Aether perspective, what is the issue?
On the Docker Hub.
Yeah.
The original is that we had free team Docker Hubs, which had unlimited number of people who could be members of the organization. They shifted that a couple years ago, and only 3 can be there. With the shift to LF, I need to make sure that a RHEL-Eng account is available as an admin for the organizations. Effectively, the only thing admins do is create new repos to dump images to. A couple other things, but basically that's the only thing we need them for, and that's why we haven't needed them for 3 years. But I need to change the ones that are at least under LF now, which includes all the Aether organizations, for instance. But of those, there's 3 that are full, and I need to do stuff in order to get an LF RHEL-Eng. Once I do stuff, all of the extra people have to go away except 3. My goal is to keep an LF RHEL-Eng and ONF builder, so both the ONF Classic and LF can get into it, and a 3rd user. Ideally, the 3rd user should be someone from TST to have the availability, but all the others would be deleted. So my question right now is, do you want me to do any of that?
Yeah, that seems like a perfectly good plan. I'm not sure ONF Builder remains relevant, but I think for safety purposes, go ahead and leave it. So who should the 3rd user be?
Well, one comment, Larry. The ONF builder is actually relevant because that's the user that we use to push the images from the Aether TST core towards the Docker Hub.
As far as I can tell, Gabriel, yep. ONF Auto is going to be a member because that's the automation account.
Oh, so
he doesn't actually own anything, but he's the automation one that gets access to push.
Oh. Okay, then I got a little bit confused.
So ONF Builder is an
ONF Auto and LF RHEL-Eng have to be there. ONF Builder can be unless you want to use a test person instead. I'm sorry, I forgot about ONF Auto.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. My confusion is not ONF Builder. Is ONF Auto is the one that has been pushing the images from the Aether TST core towards Docker Hub.
Right.
Sorry, it was my confusion. Sorry.
SD core and probably others.
Yes, pretty much across the board on all the organizations used. So basically, well, there's actually 3 questions. One is, do you want me to use ONF Builder as a 3rd person or a TST engineer? That's number 1.
I would think that, go ahead, Gabriel.
Yeah, sorry. So the first one is ONF Auto, right? What is the other 2? One, you are kind of possible suggesting ONF Builder?
Well, one is ONF Auto because that's all the build scripts use it already, and
That's
changing that
clear.
would be
Yes,
prohibited.
that's clear.
No get. Yeah. The other one would be LF Rel Eng,
Okay.
so that the LF release engineering team can get in
Okay.
as necessary. And the third would either be ONF Builder or a TST engineer.
Oh, got it. And ONF Builder, that's you, right?
ONF
Forget
Builder
ONF
is,
Builder. I don't think it's relevant, right?
it's only relevant if the ONF organization diverges enough that it still needs access. It doesn't need to be relevant. Ideally, it becomes a TST person. I kept it because we wanted ONF to still have access, but really is irrelevant because we want 3. We can only have 3 anyway, and these are now LF repositories. So it'd be a test engineer.
So I'm not sure you're looking at the notes. So LF
Yes, I
Release
see 'em.
Engineering is one, ONF Auto is another. The third seat could be a human being
Right.
from the TST, and that kind of makes sense that we have one of us that could get in there. Gabriel, do you want that? I mean, it seems that SD Core is probably one of the more dominant use cases here.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna record this as a sign to a TST member. Yeah. Currently, Gabriel.
Okay. There are 2 other questions, none of which are vital. They're more maintenance, cleanup, future confusion issues. This question answers. We just finished resolving what I need to know for organizations that have repositories that the Aether build process pushes images for. Okay. There's a number of other organizations and repositories that fall under the Aether project at some point in time, but have not been used for more than 18 months. As in, nobody's pushed anything for 18 months. Do you want me to clean them up?
Can you name them?
Yeah, give me 1 second, get my mailbox correctly back here.
Yeah, thanks. I could jump to my mail. I'm pretty sure it's in there, but I just didn't want to do that.
Okay, the update more than 2 years, actually 2 years. XOS project, OpenCord, and ONF Infra.
As far as I know, those all 3 can go away. Does anyone else know any reason not? Andy, Scott, I see you're both on.
Again,
What were
no
those
images.
repo names again?
XOS or
Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
XOS project, OpenCord, and ONF Infra. These are the Docker Hub organizations, which contain repositories underneath them. But none of those repositories have had anything.
None of which have been touched in 18 months.
Right.
Think it's fine with me if they go away.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any reason to keep them around.
Sean? XOS project. So we'll have record when we discover we made a horrible mistake. XOS project.
OpenCord.
And
that's Infra.
so
Yeah,
OpenCord, is it possible OpenCord is still used by Volta?
Again, it has not been updated in more than 2 years. Volta has had 2 releases at least in that period. I can check with Eric and Joey to a bit.
Yeah,
But
that would
most
be
of
my
theirs are
own. That would be my only concern.
Yeah, there is a Volta organization that they've been pushing most of their stuff to.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
let's add
Exodus project and ONF infra. Remove. And open core check with Volta.
Okay.
Does everyone okay with that? Okay, what's your third question?
Third question. There are 4 repositories, I'm sorry, 5, that were created but never used. As in, it had, sorry, 5 organizations. My apologies. But they have no repos and nothing's ever been done with them.
Are these still Docker Hub organizations or GitHub
Yes.
organizations?
These are Docker Hub organizations.
Ah, okay.
This is all Docker Hub.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not touching GitHub at this point, or even looking at it. Cord project, SIBA project, OMEC, Aether project, Open Ether.
Yeah, that was all so either project we could start using in lieu of the other ones.
Yep. That would be great to start moving to the Ether project itself, pushing images there.
So but I don't think we need the other ones.
Okay, so
Keep
delete
Ether
the other
project.
4
Yeah,
and leave Ether project, and we'll convert to that over time.
yeah. Keep either project, remove the other 4. We don't need to name them here.
Okay. Just to make sure, we're saying keep Ether project, delete Open Ether.
Oh, that's why that was another placeholder. Well, we're using Ether project for everything else, so I would just personally, I guess we could defensively keep it. Timon, do you think it matters? Anyone else?
If there is no need to delete it, I would keep the Open Ether. So at least you have that kind of name reserved.
Yeah, we can keep it for, as you say, preservation, just in case.
So there's no way to determine if downloads are taking place out of these repositories?
I'm sorry, if what?
They are empty.
If anybody,
They're empty. They have no repositories. There's been no updates. There's been no activity in them since they were created.
So a related question then, I'll re-ask it. For the other ones that are active, can we do, are there statistics?
All I have on them is their last, well, I can dig deeper. What I noticed is that their last image push or upload or even download was more than 2 years, was more than 18 months ago.
Yeah.
Some of them 3 and 4 years ago.
It's mostly the downloads that would be interesting to know.
Yep. I'll double check on those.
So on the 5 orgs, the 3 that we decided to delete, could you name them again for us, just in case I missed something?
Of the 5, the 3 that were definitely Cord project, SIBA project, OMEC.
I'm fine with deleting all of those. Okay, I
All right.
think we're good.
Okay, I'll take care of that today.
Thanks a lot. It turns out Docker Hub rate limiting comes up for discussion in a moment, but we'll get back to that. Let's go to the SD core update. Gabriel, that's most of your entries.
Sure. Yeah, so kind of like continuing what we were discussing last week, we finalized kind of creating all these new images for the different components of the SD core. Then we created new Helm charts because they need some changes as well, based on the new logger. Based on the SAP logger, there are a few things that are not needed anymore. And also on top of that, DAF help us kind of enabling the capability to push the UPF adapter image to its own repository on Docker Hub. So based on that, basically these Helm charts have all these different updates. Before, the UPF adapter was a subcomponent of the SMF repository, and it was using the same image as the SMF repository. So what we did now, we just kind of like split that. So the UPF adapter already has its own repository, but the issue that we were having is that we were not able to push its images to Docker Hub. So that is resolved now. So that's why we kind of released the new Helm charts having this image itself. We also removed the code, the UPF adapter code from the SMF repository because that's not needed. And those changes were also included as part of the SSD core Helm chart. So there were multiple PRs that got open over last weekend. As of last week, I think we were like 45. We got almost close to 50. Right now, we are pretty much up to date with 14 PRs open. But out of those 14, 5 are drafts. We have 5 PRs that are actually some dependable, open by the dependable, and we see issues that there are related to protobuf. Static check is complaining because one specific function has been deprecated, and we need to kind of fix that to be able, so the same fix applies to all of these 5 PRs. That's something that needs to be done at some point to be able to merge or use a newer version of protobuf for the different components. Something that we discussed last week was about also align the default name for all branches of the repositories that we have in the SD core. It's something that I discussed with Daf, and he agreed to help us renaming these branches to use main as the default branch for all of them, and also kind of like update in the GitHub Actions. We also kind of indicated whether it's a main branch or a master branch that also needs to be updated to main branch. Something that is still pending is there is a couple more repositories that need to be created. One is called OMEC pod init, and the other one is OMEC CNI. So these need to, for now, there were like a Gerrit repositories that need to be kind of moved into a GitHub, and probably kind of drop based on what we talked with Daf will be to drop the OMEC name and just leave it just like pod init. So to start using that image, updated image into the SD core components. Yeah, that's what we have, I think, so far. Hopefully I don't miss anything. Ajay indicated that he cannot join. I guess he has some, meeting at work, but high level, I think those are the updates that we have for now.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to on-ramp, anything else on the core?
No, there is a couple things related to UV run sim and on-ramp that are related to the SD core, but SD core itself, I don't think I miss anything else.
Okay, thanks. Well, yeah, we'll get to it in a moment. So update on ramp. I have moved, or I'm in the process of moving the Groovy scripts that define the pipelines that are run in Jenkins for all the integration tests. They are now in GitHub. Guess I can. And so just a bunch of Groovy files that get pulled in then to Jenkins and run as part of a collection of nightly builds. I'm kind of curious. I thought it was the case that people could anonymously get into Jenkins and just keep and look at this if they wanted to. Is that the case? I don't know how to get in anonymously because I have an account.
They need to be a member of all users, I think. So they need to have a crowd ID and ONF ID.
One question. Larry, is it possible that you kind of like put a label on the GitHub repositories pointing to the status of these the output of these tasks? So from that case, there wouldn't be any need to kind of go into Jenkins, at least to have a rough idea whether the test pass or fail directly in the on-ramp repository.
So what would you be looking at? So if you look at any one of these, you can see how it did the last time it ran and in previous history, but that's still in Jenkins. So the other place there's information is there is an Ether Jenkins channel on Slack. It's open and anyone can subscribe to it. So let me just go back into the notes and make note of that. So you can watch failures. It only reports failures, I believe. And let me see if I can. It's been quite noisy, so it's kind of hard to make sense of it. It's called Ether Jenkins. But like I said, so that actually gets me to the second point, which is while this is in progress and I've moved several of refactored and rebuilt several of the jobs. I haven't done all of A, I haven't done all of them yet. B, the ones that are there are still flaky. Stability is an issue. Turns out, coincidentally or not, Docker Hub rate limits is one problem. I saw both GNB Sim, which because Gabriel, you had recently changed it, it's likely a bunch of people pulled it. And maybe just for testing purposes, we've been pulling on it and I had as well. But there was a job failure because of that. And it turns out the OAI image failed for exactly the same reason last night. I reran again this morning just manually and it's fine. I mean, if this happens once every few months, it's no big deal. If it becomes persistent, then you're right that we probably want to do something about it. Got to raise the issue here in case anyone has any thoughts.
Just kind of one comment. I ran into this kind of issue probably last year, and I did bring it to the TST.
Yeah, I remember that.
But I haven't seen that issue anymore. So I suspect that it's kind of like just a temporary thing that this rate limit is not from the repository perspective, it's from the user perspective.
That's right.
Right. So in this case, if you say that, an anonymous user based on the IP address, probably is multiple people using AWS pulling that. That's why it's kind of been seen as a same IP address.
Well, so that doesn't make any sense though, because one, I didn't do anywhere near 100 polls in 6 hours. And two, the IP address would have been an AWS VM address, which.
But it's not necessarily the
I was reusing the same one.
But it's not necessarily the public address that is kind of being seen by Docker, right?
Yeah. So what address would be seen there?
They should be seeing the public address, right? Not your private address.
Yeah, if it's from a build job in Jenkins, it's actually going to be the NAT IP for the EC2, but essentially it's going to be an IP dedicated to that particular build machine, unless we got 4 or 5 build machines in the same area doing the same job, which I don't think we do very often. Certainly we don't do it frequently.
Yeah, so it's possible because the coincidence that we had a problem with both OAI and GNB Sim at the same time kind of makes me suspect that Docker Hub messed up. Yeah, so mostly this is an FYI. If this becomes an issue, we need to do something about it. If it disappears for another 2 years like it did last time, no big deal.
Yeah, I suspect it to disappear because again, I did face it a while ago, but I have never seen that issue again.
Yeah. Okay. Let's leave it like that for now. Keep our fingers crossed. So the other mystery going on, and I don't know that it's the resources that I'm allocating. I create VMs, and we had been assigning them 4 cores and 16 gig of RAM, and I tried to double that, and maybe it was a little bit better, but it's still random failures. And what that says to me is it's a timing issue. One pod comes up before another one, and for some reason, there's a lack of robustness in when things come up, and it's all based upon when stuff gets scheduled. And maybe if there was an abundance of resources, it wouldn't be an issue. That seems to be the indication from people that run it on their own hardware. If anyone else has thoughts on this, I'm open to suggestions.
From the SD core perspective, at least Helm charts, there is these init containers that we use to wait for the other containers to come online until, and specific that based on the dependencies, right? So for example, we wait for the NRF to be there before we start launching other functions. So I'm not fully sure whether the issue may be of that, not necessarily sequentially started or starting of the different pods, but I may think it's more from the perspective of either taking too long to download the images to get the different images, even though the images are kind of very tiny. We have tried to optimize them as much as possible, and I think the SMF image is the largest, which is probably like 40K at most. 40K? No, 40 megs probably at most. All of the other ones are really, really tiny images. But time to time I have seen, especially when I need to download new versions from Docker Hub, it kind of takes some time to kind of get all these different images and start the whole deploying all of those as part of the Kubernetes cluster.
Well, there's an interesting point. Time to download from Docker Hub again. That could be. I would not be surprised by that, because there's just what you see is not only random failures, but random amounts of time that it takes things to run. So that is a possibility.
Then alternatively, what we could try is we can start using the Aether registry instead of Docker Hub, for example. If the Aether registry stays there like in a reliable way.
Right.
But yeah, so in our case, every image, every cumulative, every PR basically pushes an image, which is not a release, either a patch, minor or major. It pushes an image to the Aether registry. So we always have these images to the Aether registry. So we could start trying to use the Aether registry in place to run some tests and see whether that may be an issue. And also you can overcome, I guess, you can overcome the rate limit imposed by Docker Hub by using our own registry.
Yep. Well, that's assuming our registry is faster than Docker Hub. But yeah.
Yep.
Seems. So I don't know, Daph or Gabriel, where is that registry? Is that running on the VM that also hosts the documents?
That's something that Daph should know.
Yeah, I try to think of where that is.
I'm sorry. Which registry are we talking about?
Where is the Aether registry running?
That is on. Oh, that's on a VM inside our AWS environment.
I didn't quite catch the end of that. On a VM.
A VM inside our AWS environment. Okay.
Right. So how many are those? I mean, is it just the one serving multiple purposes? Or there's one for Jenkins, one for Docs? This is a tangent, but I just wanted to try to get a handle on this.
You mean in terms of how many VMs?
Yeah.
One for Jenkins, one for Doc server, one for this registry, and there's one other. Oh, a Docker builder that's always available, a Docker executor. That's always it. And we did have a Confluence Jira, but those have gone away now.
So Docker builder, I don't know the difference between Docker builder executor. Do we use those anymore?
It's still there. Oh, I need to double check whether we need it. It was there to maintain all the Docker executables that ran the CI tools. Everything shifted to GitHub except ROC now, though, so we probably don't need it anymore. I'll need to double check it. But it was just a standalone executor that ran Docker containers.
Yep, yep. Got it, thanks. Yeah, I think we could probably do without that. All right, so the registry's there, we're paying for the VM, we're not using it. It's,
Correct.
yeah, all right, so somewhere down the line, once I get everything shifted over, we should give that a try. Okay, UE ransom, you've updated the blueprint, but it's still not running reliably on Jenkins. It is running, I think you've tested it, right?
Yeah, so what I did is when I was updating the Helm charts in OnRamp to use the latest version, I did test it with OnRamp because probably like a week or 2 weeks ago, we were having issues with the latest version at that time. So I ran a test with the latest, which basically the one from 1.10. When the UE ransim or OnRamp has this target Aether UE ransim run that basically copies the files from OnRamp into the machine where UE ransim is running and also runs the two processes for the G.B and the UE. So I tried to use that one, but for some reason, none of the processes were launched. So in my case, I need to keep moving to start testing. So in my case, I have a local Python script where I launch those two processes simultaneously. So I use my Python script. I tested. I make sure that the UE ransim was working with the latest Helm charts and everything worked fine. But I didn't get a chance to kind of debug this specific issue with the way how OnRamp deploy or launches, or the way how Ansible launches these two processes. So I didn't get a chance. So that's what I put in the PR and notes to kind of somebody to take a closer look into that to see what's happening. Or I don't know whether it needs to wait longer time until the processes launch, or what is the problem. But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of point that out that at least for me, it didn't work. So I launched directly through the two processes. I launched manually those two processes there.
Thanks, yeah, so that playbook is not reliable. Yep.
Yeah, now one thing to kind of highlight is the last time when I was kind of running the tests, I did launch the processes when I launched 3 UE ransim instances. It did, for example, out of those 3 UE instances, 2 of them didn't run the processes, but one is actually did run the UE and G.B on that machine. So yeah, somebody needs to take a closer look into that. But I have seen, at least in my case, trying to launch 3 instances in 3 different machines. Basically, one of them worked, but in the other one didn't launch the process. So
That is with the Ansible playbook doing the launching, right?
of course, yes.
Yeah,
With the
okay, I
answer,
just want
yes,
to make,
yes.
just double make sure. So as just a piece of evidence here, it did work for 1 of 3 instances.
Mm-hmm.
Is that of the UE?
Say it again.
Or is it 1 of 3 instances of the UE or 1 of 3 instances?
No,
of
for
the
both. So when you launch the UE ransim instance, it launches both processes, G.B and UE.
All right, so when I say that instance, there is a UE G&B pair.
Yes,
all right.
pair of processes. Yep.
Thanks. All
Yeah,
right, so having that's a good bit of data. So it maybe works in the one case, but not in the multiple.
No, what it didn't work is if I had only a single instance of UE ransim, actually it didn't launch anything in that
It only
case.
worked if it was 1 of 3. Gotcha.
Yes. Yeah, well, I was kind of highlighting this because of the reliability, that you mentioned, that is not necessarily a reliable playbook. But yeah, somebody needs to take a closer look into that. That's kind of my point.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, and the last item is we still would like to have an SRS RAN blueprint. There is no status.
Yeah, because based on the Slack message, Bilal mentioned that he's gonna work on that and have it for this week. So I wanted to make sure whether
Yeah,
there is
I
some
don't,
progress
I
or.
think that's extremely optimistic. He has limited time to contribute to this and a stack of things. So I think maybe he was a little over promising there, but I'll
Mm.
chat with him and see what, if maybe he has
Okay.
it.
Hi, Larry.
Other, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want to like confirm with Gabriel. So like currently the UE ransom like blueprint on ramp, it's not working, right?
Yeah,
Well,
Okay.
it's not necessarily reliably working. At least the tests that I run. So I was kind of running some tests. Sometime when I talked to you, probably like 2 weeks ago, there was when we were debugging. Everything worked fine at that time. It launched the processes and everything was fine. And then last week or 2 weeks ago, when I had to kind of downgrade the Helm charts because of some type of kind of weird issue with URANSIM with this authentication side, it worked. And then when I tested with the 3 instances, just to make sure that the scalability side, it only worked for 1 instance. And then yesterday I was kind of making sure before I opened the PR for the on-ramp, I was making sure that everything was working as expected. And that's basically what it didn't actually launch the processes. So that's why yesterday I said, okay, I'm not gonna waste time to kind of try to understand what's going on there. I just kind of launch the process manually and then, move on because I have many other things to also kind of take care of. So when I talked to you, it was working.
Right.
As of yesterday, it didn't work. And that's what I say. I mean, then somebody needs to take a closer look to make sure that everything works as expected.
Right.
yeah. So unfortunately, the author of UE ransom blueprint isn't working on the project anymore. So somebody needs to debug this and figure it out.
Right. So
I mean,
yeah.
it's on my to-do list, but I don't know when I'm gonna get to it.
Yeah, so I tried actually a couple of times, tried to launch the UE ransom blueprint. I think mainly because I wanted to kind of like test the maximum like throughput of the UPF, like just for documentation purposes and also for integration with the Ericsson run. So I tested initially, I wasn't able to get it connected. I wasn't even able to see the like the NGAP like process successful like from the GNOB or the run to the EMF. So I initially I thought it was some like configuration I was missing, but I tried all over again and I was seeing the same thing. So I was kind of asking to double check to see like if what I was seeing was expected or there was something that I was missing.
Okay, so just Joshua, just to clarify on that side. So the issue that I see, at least these playbooks use this Ansible to launch the process itself. So basically, you don't have to manually do that. So that's the only thing that I didn't see that it wasn't necessarily working yesterday. So what I did is I have a script. Sorry. I have a Python script that basically does the same thing that Ansible is doing. Is just take these two UE and G0D and run them as a process. So instead of basically launch one by one. So what I did yesterday is I used this Python script to launch these two processes instead of using the Ansible side for the launching of the processes. But from the configuration side, of the working side, everything was working as expected. So the only thing again in here is the process was not launched, but if I use those same configuration files that get copied from on-ramp into the machine where UE ransom runs, everything works fine. Okay, so so there is no specific issue with, let's say, with the N2 interface coming up, or the let's say the G0D doesn't find the EMF or something like that. There was not such a thing.
Right. So I was just okay, yeah, sure, I get it. So you mean like the Aether UE ransom run like process like to start the GNOD B and UE, like for the UE run?
Yes. So probably, Larry, if you can open the Ether UE run sim repository, probably we can quickly clarify that part. Going to roles simulator, going to tasks, and start. Yeah. So when you so first to launch the UE run sim, you have two steps. One is install UE run sim, and the other one is run the simulation, the UE run sim itself, right? So the YAML file that Larry is showing right now, that is when you launch the target Ether UE run sim run, it's gonna execute these steps. So the first step is gonna copy the file, and the next two steps is gonna basically launch the process. Right? Yeah. So in my case, what I did is basically I run this. I commented out the launch of the so line 17 all the way to the end, which is to launch the GNOD and the UE. And basically, I did something similar with a Python script, but using the same configuration files that were already copied in there. So, and everything works fine. So the only thing that we need, somebody needs to debug is to see why it is these two processes are not reliably launched, because they have launched in the past, but lastly, at least yesterday, I didn't see that they run.
Well, yeah, I mean, whatever it is, it's probably the shell script right here.
Right. Yep.
That's all that's going on.
Yep. Yeah, that needs to be tested.
Yeah, I think then that confirms my observation, because it looks like if these lines from 17 downwards is not running, then that means the GNOD B is not even like starting to even initiate the end-to connectivity to the core network, right?
Yes, that's correct. So the key piece in here is first it launched the GNOD B, and then it launched the UE, right? When both of them, or when the UE is authenticated in the network, the UE side is going to create a tunnel in the as an interface is named like UE SIM tune 0, I believe it is, when the entity is running, right? And then you can actually send your traffic through this specific tunnel, right? But of course, if none of these steps happen, you're not going to see that UE SIM tune on the machine, on the host machine where UE run sim is running. So you're not going to be able to use the core network itself.
Right. Okay. So can these steps be run like locally on the UE run sim server?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's what I did yesterday. So basically, I can share with you the script that I have, so you can. It's easy to run. It's pretty straightforward. So. Yeah. So what I have locally, basically I did that last year because I was running some experiments, is basically have these two entities as a process, and that's it. So there's no pretty straightforward thing.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a cut and paste error here? Why is the G and B being started with config file item 1 and the UE item 1? Item 0. So the items here are, it's an inconsistent way of doing this relative to the way everything else in OnRamp works. But the two config files are two items in a list as opposed to a config file for X and a config file for Y. Anyway, this needs to be debugged. Fair enough.
No, Larry. So maybe the confusion is also you need to take a look into lines 18 and 20, and also 33 and 35. I think they go hand by hand. So that's where it is decided either to use the GNOD B configuration or the UE configuration file. You see in line 20, it says item 0 equals 0, and then line 35 it says item 0 equals 1. So that's kind of where this decision is made.
Right. I get the when, but why isn't this one 0 is what I'm stuck on.
Well, yeah, so far the debugger needs to be done. But I
Yeah.
think, if I'm not mistaken, the last time, well, like 2-3 weeks ago, this seemed to be the correct command.
All right, well, so we've gone down this rat hole far enough. Yeah, it needs to be debugged. It's on my to-do list. Maybe I'll see if Bilal has the chance to look at it. If anyone else wants to take a stab, they are most welcome. All right, we don't have Wuzhong or anyone to talk about the SD-RAN. I know that ARA is waiting for it. I believe it's the case that the new Helm charts correspond to the new version. So what is being downloaded with OnRamp, for example, if you use that, is up to date. It's just the docs that are behind the curve here. So you might see if you make progress into that assumption.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, if we use the on-ramp SD-RAN blueprint, we should be able to have like the version 1.5.
I believe that's the case. I can't guarantee it, but I believe it is.
Okay, yeah, we can give it a try.
Okay. Is there anything else you guys wanted to report? You've already helped us out with a bunch of stuff here.
Not yet, but then we are still having the like throughput issue for the Ericsson run. So I think maybe this week we'll try to like kind of continue our conversation on that with the Aether team, if they can like provide some insights into that issue as well. That would be great. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, please do raise that and we'll see if we can help debug that. Is there anything else? Daph, if you're still there, I just noticed, I don't know that this is relevant to anything, but Scott noted how many polls there were on a couple of open chord. That's all, Scott, that's all history now, right? I mean, that's not.
Yeah, it was just I was alarmed at the magnitude of the numbers. You wonder if someone was using it for some kind of a test or something
Yeah.
that was causing repeated pulls. I can't imagine why anyone would want 500,000 pulls of Kafka topic exporter.
That does point out, though, Daph, that
Listening.
SADIS is definitely Volta related. So open chord is delivering images, whether it still is or not, I can't say, but it has delivered images for Volta.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, sorry. Open Chord repo, Open Chord organization and Docker Hub.
Yeah.
It may still be delivering. Yeah, it had not had any updated, but it may still be.
That's right, but it still may be delivering. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see any stats for like polls over time. But I'm not the admin for the org. I don't know if there's ways for you to get those stats and you could see if those are still active or not.
Yeah, I'll be checking.
Yeah, and it definitely SADIS is Volta, so that does say there's Volta stuff in there.
Yeah, and Kafka topic exporter could have gotten used somewhere else too. It was a generic enough tool. I guess it'd be interesting, if nothing else, a point of curiosity to figure out who's using those and why. Certainly if you delete the org and they go away and someone's using them, then that'll be one way to know what it was for. In an obvious and damaging way.
But yeah. Okay.
All right, near top of the hour. Thanks, everyone. Is there anything else? All right. Thank you and see you again next week.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.